Students out there or in here. I've had the grateful opportunity to not only be part of the Caricaturist family for the past 14 years, but I've also made a really exciting choice to study psychology for the majority of those years.
In some of the deepest levels that I know, which has helped me understand life and art a lot better.
And in case you're interested, I've attempted to blend the two together because I feel it's an important part of evolving as an artist or a caricature artist or just a human being in general. I'm not doing this for money or for popularity or business. I'm just doing this because I'm a big old goof with a little bit of knowledge that I find to be beneficial and intriguing. And I look at it as a way to give back besides, just drawing caricatures repeatedly. I'm talking mostly with the portrait/caricature artists out there, but whether you are one or not, I think you'll find some interesting things in here nevertheless. And I understand this isn't going to be for everyone. So kick back and enjoy the ride. So for the topics of this presentation, this webcast presentation, I'm going to talk about caricature definitions, imagination, humor psychology, caricaturist consciousness, likeness, principles, solutions as a live exaggerator, building blocks, thoughts, and the future, my future. I'm going to start out with a few caricature definitions, ones that I came up with that I feel are a little more interesting, but are basically the same. And the first caricature definition is a pretty or cute version of someone. Said no definition of caricature ever. And then we have this definition. This is the second definition, or the more proper definition, I should say. And it is a limitless range of exaggeration that emphasizes the honest uniqueness of a subject expressed in such a way that it still maintains a recognizable likeness, whether the likeness is instant or visibly absorbed and felt over time. Now, of course, this is subjective and can be argued that likeness should always be recognizable right away, and I actually agree because I feel in a live setting, drawing on the spot, going extreme isn't the best for making a living. I mean, it's amazing for experimentation and pushing the imagination, which I feel works better as studio art or personal illustrations. Might seem like a surprise coming from me, and this is also not me saying don't do crazy live exaggerations, because in my personal experience, I would have never reached some of the highest exaggerations had I not taken chances in the live settings. I still do. It's not as much as I used to. As someone who considers himself to be an extreme caricaturist, I understand that sometimes the exaggeration is so pushed that mostly those who do push that far can see the likeness simply by knowing and appreciating how it takes time to absorb the whole picture before coming to the conclusion of who it is and if the likeness is great or not. My second caricature definition is more of the broad version. Basically, it can be applied to any expression of caricature. It is the exaggeration and uniqueness of a person through any type of expression in order to expose that person's likeness with the intent of humor. So, like I said, it can be applied in all forms like acting, drawing, or even storytelling. So now we're going to go a little further. Imagination. Imagine at eye on. Get that pine cone warmed up and ready to manifest some wild art. You know what I'm saying? If imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, we've flattered reality enough. It doesn't need anymore. Reality needs a massive injection of imagination. And that is a quote by John Rappaport. When it comes to caricature, imagination is the key component to being aware of all the important qualities of a subject, including features, attire, sound, color, contrast, mannerisms, and overall character. And when it comes to caricature, imagination is the unique process of starting with an idea and sculpting it through a medium of choice. Using your imagination is very important as it never shuts off and can easily be used by others if neglected. That's right, it can be easily used by others. For example, it's really easy to be shown or taught how to draw in a certain way or style, and that's okay, while we are trying to get a grasp on how to apply ourselves. But if we find ourselves only using someone else's style as our own, then we've only borrowed their mindset and never used our own. It's a very important thing to understand. And now let's move on to humor. What is the secret to humor? The secret to humor is surprise! One theory of psychology of humor called benign violation theory was developed by Peter McGraw, which he suggests that we will find something funny when two conditions are met. It violates the way we think the world should work, and it does so in a way that's not threatening. First, the violation part. The crux of this is what we all have a basic sense of how the world should work, which includes the norms for appropriate behavior and general beliefs about what is correct when our basic sense of the world is violated. It might make us laugh. If someone does something wrong or says something they're not supposed to say, it's grounds for the giggles. When it comes to the humor of caricature, the crux would be that many people think they know how they think they look. Okay, let me just say that one more time. When it comes to the humor of caricature, the crux would be that many people think they know how they think they look. And when their basic understanding of how they look gets distorted or violated, it usually causes the giggles. To exaggerate certain features in a really interesting or bold way may seem ridiculous or unimaginable, which can create bursts of laughter and extra awesome reactions. So this next part is really important, and I want to share this idea and understanding of caricature consciousness, which is about awareness. And here is the definition I felt best sums it up, which is the ability of an artist to recognize and or perceive patterns, characteristics, and overall likeness of a subject with respect to the events going on within the artist's mind and environment. So seeing and being aware inwardly and outwardly, which brings me to the next part of the caricature consciousness. I want to ask, do you consider yourself to be more right-brained or left-brained? You would think most caricature artists would be more right-brained, since the right brain is associated with art and creative expression. But from what I've gathered, I'd say most caricaturists are more left-brained in and outside of caricature, which I will possibly and hopefully get into what I mean by that more in the future as in a follow-up to this video cast. So looking at the left brain, we have realism, attention to detail, precision, anatomy, facts, fixed formula, and style. And there's definitely more aspects to it, but those are the ones that I chose. And these are the sacred masculine aspects of our left brain. And before I go into more of this, I want to be clear, this has nothing to do with limitations on what we can and cannot do with our talent. It's actually to encourage the opposite of that. It's to help us find what might actually be limiting us from expanding our talents. And this also means I'm obviously in no way limiting these aspects to caricaturists only. But I am pointing out these aspects uniquely and exclusively to caricaturists to get the point across that once we fine-tune the aspects we need in order to create a better likeness and exaggeration, we can humbly do so by working on the components we lack. This applies to anyone and everyone, but the aspects I've chosen here, I believe they relate to the minds of caricaturist mindset the most. On over to the right brain, we have exaggeration, overall observation, abstraction, essence, feelings, breaking rules, and experimentation. When unified, we get realism and exaggeration to generate likeness, which then leads to the uniqueness combined by attention to detail and the overall observation. Precision and abstraction deliver boldness, and anatomy and essence spark the humor. Facts, or the objective look and the way we feel, cause simplicity by shapes we feel and the fact of its accuracy, the accuracy of the shape in relation to the likeness. And breaking the fixed formula, whatever that may be, is a place of fun, and this can be the place of humor as well. Then style with the experimentation finds the design, strengthening the likeness. I hope that's making sense with everybody. And just to be clear, I'm not picking on anyone in particular either. I'm just showing some unique observations. And I mean, if the shoe fits, then wear it. But I just think this type of observation is pretty fascinating and can be helpful to a student who may be trying to figure out what aspects need work to generate a more balanced approach. And I hope, again, I hope this is making sense. And it's definitely more on the advanced side. It's really only to give insight to the deeper self, because it's not just, like I said, I'm not just limiting this consciousness and these aspects to caricatures or the caricaturist's mindset. Now, on to caricature crunchiness. So basically, what I'm saying is the left brain is for cookie cutting and the right brain is for cookie eating. Sorry if that just threw you off, but that's just some silly inside baseball if you're not familiar with any of that. But seriously, togetherness within is balance, and togetherness out here and the expression outwardly and around each other. That's what this is about. I just did that just for fun. So now on to likeness. And obviously likeness is, in my opinion, the most important part. So therefore, let's dive into this deeply. And it's going to be a little different than maybe what you've heard from other artists out there, or anybody who is talking about subjectivity and objectivity. So here is a great buddy of mine, Jeremiah, who's got a soul of greatness like no other. and he's hilarious. And here's
All
a
right, you ready?
crazy
Yeah.
drawing I did of him.
Man, you got the wrinkles on the forehead. Oh, wait. That's good.
So I'm just showing you this because I just want you to understand the live setting of exaggeration and getting likeness and making it funny. And, this is definitely one of the only videos that I could find that I really liked. And plus, it was a friend of mine, so I figure it would be more fitting. So I'm just going to give these definitions just to make sure that I'm very clear on what I'm going to be talking about when it comes to likeness. So first off, I'm just going to go right into helping us understand subjectivity versus objectivity. So when it comes to likeness and caricature, so the subjectivity in likeness is the result of a perception, feeling, and or opinion expressing likeness of a subject or someone. And then there's objectivity, which is the true unwavering, so a resolute or fixed essence, an actual physicality of the subject, independent from individual subjectivity caused by perception, emotion, and or imagination. So, likeness and caricature is kind of like the truth. We do our best to get as close to it as possible. So, if let's say Bobby is a real guy and you draw Bobby's face, his face is the truth. It's the objective truth because it's literally his face in reality, but drawing him is and always will be subjective to his actual objective face and character. This is why some caricaturists say it's funny because it's true, or I'm just being honest, or I only draw the truth. It's because being a caricaturist at its core is about getting likeness with exaggeration. And, and it's an expression. It's a subjective expression. The overall likeness of the actual subject, the person, is objectively the truth of that subject's likeness. Thus, the corresponding expression of that subject through caricature is attempting to express that likeness objectively as close as possible. And obviously, the objective likeness can never be reached because that would be recreating the actual being, the person, the subject. No one can do that. I mean, unless you make a clone. But even then, that's not objectively the person. So, hopefully, I'm not making this too complicated to understand. I'm trying to make this easy and simple. When I hear someone say, Nate, there's no such thing as truth, I then ask, okay, well, is that the truth? Okay, so truth and likeness and caricature. We have, I just wanted to show something really simple. Okay, so I'm going to try not to lose you here, so bear with me. What you're seeing is an object with different sources of light from different angles, casting shadows of that object that you see there onto the walls. And as you can see, each shadow is different, yet it's the same object that helped create that shadow or those shadows. Now, that object can be likened to a person's actual likeness, because the person is their likeness. That's self-evident. And here is where it can be, this is where it can get confusing. So definitely listen carefully. The person is the subject, and that person's likeness is objectively the likeness of that person. So when we draw the subject, it is from our individual perspective. Thus, it is a subjective expression of that person's objective likeness. The object you see is likened to the truth, or the objective likeness. And then our perceptions or expressions of that person is subjective. And just to clear that up, this is a little easier to understand. So like if we're all sitting in a room and there is a model in the middle and we're all circled around the model, drawing the model, well, each one of us is subjectively expressing with our perceptions subjectively of that objective truth of likeness, which is the actual model themselves, right? It's simple. It is that simple, but we tend to complicate it. But I'm just trying to say, to understand this definitely helps understand something deeper outside of caricature. This is the whole point of why I'm trying to share this. It's very fascinating to me because, truth is simple. And I think that the way we express truth isn't so simple. But I feel like I have managed to figure it out, how to express it as an idea of what it is. Because obviously, in life, we try to get to truth as close as we can. And we don't exactly know what it is, but we know that we want to know what it is because it's the opposite of a lie, right? It's the opposite of just, a perception. It's the whole thing. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that because, I know that that becomes controversial, and maybe I have already made it controversial. That's fine. It doesn't matter. I'm just putting the truth on the table. So, anyway, this is really fascinating to me, and I hope it is to you too. I'm not trying to tell you what to believe. I'm not trying to tell you how to think or feel about this. I'm just expressing an idea that makes a lot of sense. So, moving forward. So real quick, I just want to recap that these caricature principles that I'm going to share, they are 4 of those: the facial comparison, sound, color draining, awareness. Those are theories. It's a caricature theory. That's the name of the video on YouTube. I came out with that about 5 or 6 years ago or something. But anyway, I changed the name to principles. And I'm just going to kind of go one by one and explain them a little further, maybe hopefully clarify some things. But there's not going to be any, I'm not going to give any visuals. But if you pay attention, there's definitely some unique ideas and these principles. So looking at facial comparison, everything that I'm going to tell you, I just want you to visualize. So visually absorbing many faces in order to notice, compare, and contrast their unique shapes, sizes, and overall expressions. So imagine taking a person or dog's face and closely observe it for about 5 seconds. And then look at another face. Look at another dog's face, or another, or a different breed of a dog, or different person. And then another face, and so on and so forth. So just keep doing that 5 seconds on this face, 5 seconds on that face, 5 seconds on that face, and just keep doing it. So basically, if you do this exercise a few times, you'll start to see the differences or what makes each face so unique. I mean, when I started drawing dogs and different breeds, I would and still do look at many dogs of the same breed before drawing a dog of that breed. So I have a better understanding of that dog's likeness, so that way I feel more confident in the turnout of capturing more uniqueness of that dog. And obviously the same with people. And then on to sound. It is an exaggerated expression of a subject's essence that allows the viewer to hear the subject physically and mentally. So just think of seeing a caricature of someone in your head, and it's almost as if you can literally hear their essence in that drawing. I don't know how else to really explain that, but this just adds to the overall likeness. You know, looking at the drawing and be like, man, I can actually hear them in that. So then on to color draining, and this is about emphasizing the saturation of certain pigments of color in interesting, important, and colorful parts of the face and body, while desaturating other parts to add focus where it needs to be. Color draining is like contained energy in a certain area where the definition is more concentrated. Hope that makes sense. And then awareness is about objectively paying close attention, observing, and learning without biased assumptions. This is the part about consciousness where it's important for the artist to take in information of more than just the subject. Finding things out about the subject, observing the relationships the subject has with their atmosphere. So that's really, really important to keep that in mind. And of course, inspiration, the principle of inspiration, learning from and borrowing other ideas and styles for motivation, for motivational fuel, to then naturally generate your own unique expression. We are all unique, yes, but we are all borrowers of some sort, which eventually over time gives us a more solid type of style that stands out a little more. So if you can, just definitely go check out that caricature theory video. It's cool for the visuals, but it's also really cool because I do go a little bit in a different direction in some of those principles, and like I said, I call them caricature theory. And now on to something that I find very helpful when it comes to getting away with drawing extra funny in a retail environment as a caricaturist. So the first step is having extra funny samples hanging up, because people seem to expect what they see hanging up. Okay. So then on to step 2, having a positive attitude definitely shows the people that you draw, that you're not a threat and mean no harm. And then 3 is about being excited. People love that energy. They love excited energy. They love to see that you're really passionate about what you're doing. Number 4, have confidence. People can tell if you're happy with your sketch, which helps with them wanting to keep it. Number 5, make sure to balance personal passion with customer experience. I know we all have our own way of going about how that is, but finding that nice sweet spot of doing the drawing for yourself and them. If you're doing it for yourself halfway and then you're doing it for them halfway, it's the most beneficial, because then you're making two people happy about it. At least one, maybe zero. I don't know, but do it for yourself and do it for them, not just for you, not just for them. Number 6, if asked about getting rejects, let those who want to know that most people have a sense of humor, and let them know it hardly ever happens. Nobody wants to be your first or your rare reject. Getting upset about rejects is a waste of time. And then number 8, take chances. This is why we have an imagination. And finally, number 9, be honest, but with tact, of course. This is one can be tricky, but it is the healthier way to go on all sides. So here we have the 4 building blocks for live caricature, but it's not limited to that. Just think of this as input, processing, and output, and of course, the effect following the output. So first, we have to gather the information, which is what the subject looks like, acts like, sounds like, and feels like. And by feels, I mean how we intuitively feel about that person. What's their mood? What kind of animal do they look like? Or are they high? How high are they? I don't know, but any information is good to gather, but don't overthink it. That's the key. And then the second block is about the process of making the decision, envisioning how the caricature will look with the imagination working in conjunction with observation to be able to see in our mind what is generating in order to put the idea into action or on paper, which is the third block of application. The expression with the chosen tools, techniques, and styles. This is the output. The process right before the result. And of course, the final result, which I assume most people would agree is the best part, the finished caricature. And it's generating the reaction. That's the result. So reactions are always very interesting, nonetheless. So that's why it is the best part. And this is the second building blocks, which is about overcoming fear and having fun and passion in our work, The first, of course, being fear, and it's usually about not getting likeness or fear of reaction and or the fear of rejection. And that happens more, especially with the heavier exaggerations, because it's more risky. So that's why a lot of people don't do that in a live setting. But we overcome most of that with confidence. The key to a positive experience is confidence. Gotta worry less and know we're gonna do awesome artwork. And this leads right into the fun of it by drawing with passion, confidence, and creativity while enjoying the moment. Because why not? Even if money is your ultimate goal, it's so much healthier to have fun and enjoy your talent and not let it go into the stamped out only mode, Ben, right? You don't want to just fall into the way of stamping everything out and doing that every single day, hour after hour. I mean, you do what you want. But that's actually my greatest fear as a caricaturist. I consider that a good fear, though, because it keeps me on my toes and keeps me uncomfortable and continually growing as a caricaturist. Might not make as much money, but it's not about that for me. I mean, obviously, I gotta pay my bills somehow. So, and it's cool to be able to do that with something that I'm passionate about and I love. So that brings me to this next slide. The art of caricature is but a puzzle piece in the vast reality of imagination. Let it not be the limitation that holds you back from all the other wonders of vision and expression. So in other words, keep expanding past all barriers and go beyond caricature. That's what I'm saying. And please don't take this as me knowing what's best for you. It's more about understanding we all have higher potentials, and I'm sharing this as inspiration to hopefully help you on this wild journey of expression. Whether you're great at caricatures or not, asking for critiques is always a great avenue for growth. The same principle applies to any work that you put out, not just caricatures. And that's really the underlying message in this whole beyond caricature presentation is I see something so special outside of caricature, and I'm very thankful that I have come to recognize it and discover it, so that way I can share it in the world of caricature, because why not? The caricature is it's one of my greatest passions, and I'm forever grateful that I was able to get into the realm of caricature. It has definitely changed my life and made me, it definitely has been a big part of who I am today. Because it definitely, exaggeration, especially when you're going extreme, that takes a lot of imagination to go that far and to be, so connected in that way, with what you're seeing and what you're feeling and how you're expressing it. And it's very freeing in that way. So, but what I did is I took that the same principle of thinking deeply and exaggeration and, the pushing and pulling and the depth perception. I thought, well, if I can do this in caricature, I can do this in life in general. And it's really fascinating, because, our mind is so vast. I mean, why not push it as far as we can, But it's very rewarding as it heightens and expands the mind to extraordinary degrees of vision that can only be seen with the hard labor that it takes to get there, just as the hard labor it took to become an extreme exaggerating caricaturist with a decent likeness. And that's it. Maybe I'll add more to this later at some point. And until then, keep creating and expanding your mind.